Theodore Laskaris was an important aristocrat in Constantinople. He held the title of despot in 1203, giving him a claim to the throne. As the Latins arrived at Constantinople, Theodore fled the city and established a state in Anatolia. By the time the city was sacked, Theodore had a relatively stable position. However, he was sandwiched between the Seljuk Turks in the east and the Latin occupiers in the west. To exploit the greed of the Crusaders, he offered higher wages to any defecting knights. Through this, he was able to gather 800 knights. The Seljuk Sultan, Kaykhusraw I, wanted to exploit the fall of Byzantium and take over the rest of Anatolia, using the emperor in exile, Alexios III, who the Crusaders deposed, as a pretext to invade the Nicaean Empire. He besieged Antioch on the Meander, a strategic city acting as a gateway to western Anatolia. Theodore understood the importance of the city and decided to risk everything in a confrontation. It was either victory or total destruction of the Nicaean state. With the city on the verge of falling, Theodore scrounged up 3,000 soldiers, 800 of which were the Latin knights. His army is thought to mainly consist of cavalry, as he needed to reach the city quickly. The Sultan's army numbered around 10,000, with a mix of archers, slingers, infantry, and cavalry. When the Nicaean emperor arrived near the city, he decided to use the narrow mountain pass to his advantage. This negated the Seljuk number advantage, and didn't allow them to use their cavalry to envelop the Nicaean force. As the Sultan heard of Theodore's arrival, he drew up his force, with the skirmishers in front. As the Turks approached, Theodore sent his Latin knights to charge. The heavy cavalry trampled the light slingers and archers, then circled back to the Nicaean host. Once they reformed, they went for another charge. This time, they met with the Turkish infantry. The charge was devastating, pushing the Turks back, but not routing them. Kaykhusraw, seeing the opportunity, sent his cavalry to envelop the knights. Theodore did not send aid, as this would have overextended his force. The knights fought valiantly, but they were cut down to the last man. Once the Latins were dealt with, the Turks charged the Nicaeans. The fighting was brutal, as Theodore and his men fought desperately to hold the line. After hours of intense fighting, parts of Theodore's force began to retreat. Using this to his advantage, the Sultan pressed on with his troops and looked for Theodore himself. The two recognized each other as Kaykhusraw advanced towards the emperor. The Sultan pressed forward, hitting Theodore on the head, knocking him off his horse. Thinking victory was assured, the Sultan started ordering his men to take Theodore away. However, in the moments where all seemed lost, Theodore desperately, with all his vigor, stood up and slashed the rear leg of Kaykhusraw's steed. This panicked the horse, and the Sultan was unseated, falling to the ground. With his enemy on the ground dazed, the Nicaean emperor did not waste time. He quickly ran up and decapitated him, putting his head on a lance and raised it high. This struck fear into the remaining Turks, and they quickly routed from the field. However, the Nicaean army was in such shambles that they did not pursue the fleeing enemy. The traitorous Cretan responsible for the sack of Constantinople, Alexios III, was captured. Theodore snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. The triumph secured Western Anatolia. as the Seljuk Turks never mounted a serious invasion again. The victory also gave Theodore and his dynasty considerable prestige, as with Alexios III out of the picture, he was the main claimant to the throne. Not all was well, however, as the destruction of the Latin knights severely weakened his army. He will now have to deal with the Latin and Trebizond empires without them. If you want to relive this tumultuous period, and perhaps change it for the better, join our Roblox Byzantine group, where you can experience Constantinople and participate in large-scale battles.